Welcome to Decentral Lens, where lifelong friends Blutoshi and Disco navigate the ever-evolving crypto landscape. With genuine curiosity and a commitment to nuance as our North Star, we offer clear-eyed exploration. Our goal? To empower listeners with the tools and insights needed to flourish in this decentralized age.
All right, I'm trying to do 37 things at once here, posting on a couple of the DMs and stuff like that while doing the opening, while doing a little intro. Hello, everybody. I am Blutoshi, and on my right is Disco. How you doing today, Disco?
I'm doing good. I can't really, the last couple of shows I've been really up and down, jumpy, excited, pumped up, really, hey, we got an opportunity, everything, blue skies and rainbows. And to be fully transparent with my emotional state at the current time, it's a bit of a lull for me. I'm sitting there and I don't know if anyone else is feeling it, but it's like I just had so much, anticipation and excitement around having, and maybe I might have had some dreams of buying yachts and things like that, which didn't necessarily come to fruition. However, I remain a full believer in my theses prior to that. But I will say there just isn't, I'm not getting as much of the endorphin rush when I check Twitter, crypto Twitter or X or whatever it is, and I'm just not as there's not as many compelling things that have me super excited. So we're gonna have to kind of talk through it this show and see what's there. But I like that, it kind of gives us the opportunity to kind of work through what we may be carrying around in our minds or in our heads. So anybody who's
a little anxiety here, Disco. It's like that was like a long-winded intro to a therapy session. I like this.
I know. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm not really anxious. There is a sense of security about it. Like I do believe that things will be, that it's all coming, but maybe I need a little bit of coaxing in terms of managing potential impatience, because I do find that as a threat right now, where I get set up in my little, cordoned off section of the house and I sit there and I look at things. I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing that exciting. I haven't gotten airdropped or anything. Maybe I should buy. And then, I come back later and I look, I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't buy because I would have bought higher than it is now. So, it's like this little ping pong of what should I do to feel productive? And there are times where the best move is to walk away. I remember Scribe said it when we were talking to him, the week after, and he's like, you know what, might be best just to shut your laptop and go on a walk for a couple months and come back. So yeah, that's, I'm just being totally transparent. That's where my emotions are at right now.
Yeah, I think honestly, the best move, like 99% of the time, again, is do nothing. Like if I had a dueling like line chart over a time horizon on if I had my original Bitcoin from 2015 and dollar cost averaged in, and what I have now from that left versus all the ordinals and NFTs and runes and stuff like that, it probably would be depressing. Like I don't even and I don't regret getting into any of these. Like I love it. I met so many cool people, and we could go. I was already telling my wife, like when we retire and the kids are off to college or whatever, and we're starting to travel the world, like and I guess now we can live vicariously through someone like Good Things, who's like, hey, I'm in Japan. I'm in Ecuador this morning. Oh, I'm surfing in Maui. Like he's just following the waves, like. Jealous, but also like there's so many people. I kind of jokingly said, hey, when I retire, I'm visiting all you MFers, literally and figuratively, and a ton of people were like, hey, Seattle here, hey, Tokyo here, and I'm like, damn, we've got quite a network. Like if you actually build friendships, which take time and it takes meeting people, it's not just these little things we have here. So a lot of people come and go. It's just like friends in real life, but you kind of create this cool network of like-minded people. And, at some point it would be awesome to travel the world and visit so many of these folks.
Yeah. And I think that, when you see the FOMO I have more right now is, like Hong Kong, it's like, dude, I'd love to be going to Hong Kong and seeing what's happening with Ordinals Asia and everything like that. And I do think that maybe that's something I need to inject more into, kind of my schedule and my lifestyle, is to attend some of these conferences. Cause I think that, when you're kind of in this lull in a bowl and it's kind of slow and you're like, instead of just making little, self-talk or little actions, because let's be honest, we're both competitive people to a degree. And when you're sitting there and you're not seeing action, you're like, well, I'll make something happen. And
Right.
that can often lead to just activity without a positive response. So yeah, that's just kind of, I guess I'm on the couch. We're doing a little headspace issue, kind of working through that. But I do feel what you're saying is really powerful when you think about the amount of folks that do have kind of seen the light and do choose to kind of look at life a little bit differently and go down these rabbit holes and get that gratification from that. Like, it would be great to kind of have more IRL kind of experience with those folks.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about the market. I mean, we did the
Yeah.
halvening. Gosh, what was that? Was that 3 weeks ago now? It's time is such a weird thing. We were so that 90 days of pre-runes, the prunes era, like, was so fun and so anticipatory. And, all the runes had a little run, and, Arsic and Dog are in the $200-300 million range. So it's not like they're small, but I think there's this, whether we call it a crab or a bear now, there's definitely, and within every bull, there's a million bears. It's not just like up only, but, obviously with the big macro stuff with the Fed, they said they weren't raising interest rates, which I think everybody at this point knows they can't. I think they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because inflation's still out of control. But when you're borrowing your own money and having to pay it back at higher interest, like, that screws you too. At some point, they're going to have to lower interest rates just so they're paying less interest on what they're borrowing, which, if that sounds absolutely crazy and insane for a sovereign nation to do that, it seems like it kind of is. Like, I'm sure there are reasons for it, like, World War II war bonds, and, getting people to buy into the war, and maybe you got to spend a little extra to beat the Germany and the Nazis in World War II. But now, with all the, there's wars going on, and obviously we won't want to protect democracy, but there's just a lot of craziness and unrest, both at home with the election this year and overseas with all the fighting, and Palestine and Israel, and obviously Ukraine and Russia. Like, there's just a lot. But at the end of the day, that's kind of why we all gravitate here towards Bitcoin, and obviously now with our degen ordinal and runes, we love it because we're building more of an infrastructure. But I don't know. It's scary, because think about, like, Ohio State. I mean, let's just jump around like we always do. So at Ohio State, I watched the speech of that guy. He got booed for bringing up Bitcoin, and I watched the 50-second clip. And granted, like, he didn't seem super charismatic, and he was a little heavy-handed. But the second he brought up Bitcoin, the frat boys, or I shouldn't even say that, who knows, like, people were booing immediately. And it kind of raises red flags for me that the education, like, mainstream media, we know, has been just saying, like, illicit funds and terrorist financing and all this stuff that we know is not even, like, we know a lot of it is just downright misinformation and lies, or at least highly exaggerated truths. But that's the reality that a lot of people are getting. I just assumed a lot of college kids and younger kids were like, Bitcoin and crypto is the future, and that they understood a lot of the things we understood about money, and like how much inflation and the government controlling the printing of money. Like, there's certainly good things about that, but there's, in my opinion, far more problems with that. And it's getting, I think, America and the rest of the world kind of in trouble. And it's kind of having this standoff. But I guess what I was surprised at, and this is a sample size of one, but how much pushback there was just from, Ohio State and students. All it takes is for one or two people to cringe and boo, right? So it's not even like that was the representative of the masses, but it's still a data point that the education of crypto from all of us to our normie friends it's not good. It's not good. And we're losing that attention battle. We're all drinking each other's Kool-Aid. and we're not getting the message out greater. And is it our responsibility? I don't know. I mean, Disco and I are getting more and more interested in it, but that's a big fight, and it's kind of a scary one, to be quite frank.
Oh, there's about, okay. It's like,
yeah,
I just
gave you 74 talking points.
Yeah.
Disco, what do you think about all 74 in order?
No,
please?
it's like I just checked into the Airbnb and I have about an hour to unpack everything that just was loaded in that backpack. But first of all, when you talk about speeches, there was a bar set by a gentleman in high school with a speech that if that was brought up in that same sort of powerful, kind of excitement and if anyone could have emulated Blue Toshi with a election speech, then there would be applause across the room, which you didn't see from the Ohio State gentleman. I do have a thought. Are
you talking about my speech running for president of
the
senior?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes, I can't. Dude,
I was just telling my kids about that. It's
etched in my head. Like it is seminal. I mean, there was the other guy who did it, but the other guy turned out to be really bad and, a lot of bad things. And it was just a bad energy of the person who had like a big, or impactful speech. But yours was pure energy, pure comedy, pushing it to a degree, but not too far. It was towing the line, but it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. So I can't dox to the point of having that, and I don't even know if we ever had video of that. Has there ever been video?
I left the speech. We gotta give people a couple more details, and I appreciate everything you said. So I ran for president of my class senior year, and we went to a very large high school here in Illinois, and basically my whole platform was like the same kid was president all 4 years, and he was a super nice kid, but he was definitely the glad hander. Yeah, he was the glad hander in the hallways. Like you didn't necessarily see him at the parties. He might, but he was a super nice kid. Like everybody liked him, and he shook everyone's hand. But and so I ran, and I'm like, all right, dude, you've been president for 3 years now. Like, come on, it's time to pass the baton and it's time to move on. And my whole platform was that this is just a figurehead. I won't do anything. And one of our friends was running for vice president. I'm like, he could do everything because I'm not going to show up for meetings. I'm not going to show up for anything because and I'm not going to promise you Coke machines in the cafeteria and other lame crap. I'm just going to be president, do nothing. And, you can all just bow. And I'm not even doing it justice, but it was the most proud I ever was because my dad always told me to be a public, people are more afraid of death, of public speaking than death. Like it is literally above death.
Yes.
In how afraid people are. So I'm like, all right, I'll try it. I'll do a public speech. And I had everyone laughing and basically a platform of nothing. And we had a runoff. So it was just me and him. 11 people ran. He and I had a runoff, and then he won the runoff. So I think I won outright. And they were like, all right, let's give him his, you did well. But then, and even if I won the runoff, they were going to give it to him anyway. That's my contention. And it probably was a smart move on their part because I didn't give a crap. Like my platform was, I'm not going to do anything. And I followed up when I almost won with nothing because I didn't care. Right. But it was a cool moment. I appreciate you bringing it up. What did that have to do with crypto or anything? That I do better than the Ohio State guy and his cringe
yeah,
crypto?
I'm saying it's not I'm saying before he led into Bitcoin, it's not like he had, the crowd rolling with him, it was pretty, up to that point. So he didn't warm the stage that much for the topic. However, I do think it'd be interesting. And I think you're onto something that I'm even thinking about with, I have a couple kids that are entering, the college thought process. You look at the funds and you look at what you've, if you've tried to squirrel some money away to, offset these insane costs of tuition that are hitting there. And, what you just said about, if you had just put it into Bitcoin and didn't do anything else and dollar cost average in, I often think about that. It's like, dude, if you have a college fund and you want to just dollar cost average it into Bitcoin, maybe you'd be a hell of a lot better off in the end of the 4 or 5 years, with a degree from XYZ. And I just don't know. So that goes.
Oh, you're saying that I thought you meant for us trying to fund for our kids. Obviously our kids were
I'm
born
saying
before
you go to
Bitcoin came out. Oh no, they actually, my son was born before Bitcoin came out, but my other child was not. But you're saying, no, this is more like go work, go learn or do whatever. And here's your money in Bitcoin. I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm saying, okay, so say you have, a 529 or whatever it is, and you look at it, it's like, yeah, you'll get penalized, 15, 20% if you withdraw it and don't put it towards education. So you kind of run those numbers, but then you're like, okay, so say you had $200,000 set aside, would you be better off putting that into like, 2 or 3 Bitcoins and then dollar cost averaging in, and then seeing in 2030 where you're at with that and what you can do with that as a seed fund versus a, diploma from Ohio State University, not to disparage any specific university, but I do think it leads to a relatively important question. And I also think you're right. Because of that, is there any incentive for anybody within an institutional environment to be positive on crypto? Like, is there any benefit to anybody within a business school or anything like that at one of those organizations to say, hey, this is something to consider and get into? And I'm not talking about like Gary Gensler at MIT, talking about, when he was talking Bitcoin and doing classes on that. But I do think it's an interesting thought exercise. Like, where's your money going to be better invested? And are we just kind of blinded by, generational thoughts of, oh, you've got to go to, your college and do this or that? And are we then going to plug away, north of $250,000 to get that degree?
Well, it begs the question, is it just about the money? And that's the thing that we battle with. Like, you've got kids going off to college. I'm a couple of years behind you and another good friend of ours. And I was like, oh, college costs, like the fissures are happening, right? The costs have gone down. They're like, no, you want to go to a private school? Like, obviously funding and financing aside, and needs-based aside and scholarship aside, it's like private schools are like 70 to 80, which a year, which is mind-numbingly stupid in my opinion. And public is, I know in Illinois, because our state has run out of money, it's like our state is like 55 to go to University of Illinois. It's like it's cheaper to go to other states over our state. But is it worth it? Are the philosophy classes, and I'm a big liberal arts fan, I know you are too, is it, and obviously you're getting way off track here, but is that worth it? Because it's not, I guess my only point is it's not just about the money, but like my son's like, school's stupid, college is stupid. I don't think schools even serve boys anymore. I think like it's all about sitting still. Now it's all about like my taxes just went up like 50% to fund like the locking of doors. So now, I don't know if you know this, doors lock and you can only go out, but they open going out of the school, but they never open going in. And that's for shooters, right? And like my son's not, it's a high school. It's a huge high school. They're not allowed to go outside except when gym class is outside. It's absurd. Like you get in California or probably Colorado, you probably have more like outdoor campuses. And I said, I'll take you to the school board. We'll yell at them together. You get 3 minutes and we'll at least make fun of them, record it and like have a laugh. Like you people literally have lost the plot and the map to what it is to be raised a kid. They already are on their screens too much. And that he has so many good teachers, but there's a lot. I think the whole system is just like, it's so broken. It's hard to even.
So my kids go to a nice, a good public school and it's got accolades, blah, blah, blah. But I was driving my daughter to school yesterday and I got so pissed off because she was like, oh yeah, I got my science test today, but I think I'm okay for it. And I'm like, okay, well, what'd you do? She's like, well, I had to do Khan Academy last night because my teacher didn't teach us anything that's going to be on the test. So so think of that. Like your kids have to go outside of the resources from the school and take that upon themselves to get the information to be able to succeed on these tests. So it's all right.
That's true. Yeah. And my son just said, he came in last night and he said, hey Dad, while we were in our long car ride last weekend, we had to drive 7 hours each way for my niece's graduation. And it was a nice road trip and stuff. And he's like, hey, look what I did in the car. And he had learned all about electricity and volts and amps. And he had all these analogies. I was like, and I'm like, where'd you learn that? He's like, I just looked at it on YouTube and I took these notes. And I'm like, he's learning. Oh, there you are. He's learning more about all of science, and he's got a great science teacher, but he's learning more on YouTube. Like schools just need to change. Here you go ahead. I'm just going to shut this door.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it leads back to like some of our earliest episodes when we were really, centered around the notion of decentralization. And you kind of look at, the opportunities for more of a, you know, open sourced education now, and you really wonder, what is kind of what's the blockade to really that just coming to life, and if you're getting disappointed, we both went out of our way to land in school districts for, strong, you know academic support for our kids. And as you indicated, that's what the lion's share of our property
Right.
taxes goes towards. And then when you see your son being able to kind of teach himself up on a 6-hour car ride way more than what he probably would have gotten in 6 months of a class, it's like, what are we doing? So I think that that's interesting, because I think that this little bit of a lull in terms of not just jumping on all the new things and all these
Right.
shiny objects and all this what ifs kind of helps us to have a little time to breathe and recenter and look back at some of the elements that are really exciting and interesting and important. And I actually have an article that I'm going to release in the next couple of
Oh,
days. Oh yeah,
that's
breaking
all right
news.
to
I'm sure
hear.
everyone's going to be clamoring at the gates for that. But
I'll read it.
what
I'm
I
excited.
what I tried to do is take a look at the political side of, crypto within the United States and within the political system. And the question I'm really starting to ask myself is, yes, we're getting more organized in terms of an industry being able to have lobbying force. And, Fairshake is the number 3 funded political action committee ahead of the upcoming elections. But my problem that I'm running into is in looking at the positioning pieces, even specific to these 2 pieces of legislation, which I think are nothing burgers, is, are we just letting the funders of these organizations get their agendas across? And where does this leave kind of the retail and engaged people who are passionate about, self custody and passionate about freedom to transact? And is that getting kind of, blended away within, Coinbase putting 25 million into a fund? And, Coinbase, you've seen some tweets about it this week. Like, are they benefiting from kind of creating this moat of, lack of potential competitors by being kind of the favored choice within
Right.
kind of the walls of Congress? And where is that really going to leave us? All these things, oh, we're going to get a little bit of regulation that'll be so good for this or that, but where does that leave, the retail guy? And then the other question on top of that is, are we getting any more retail folks in? And I think the Ohio State ceremony is a red flag for that. So we thought, or at least I thought, there was going to be, bulls on parade and people running in from all over the place to get involved in Rune's post-halving and around the halving and all that. And is it really just the same people who've been at the party or who were in the party before? Are they just kind of coming back? But I just don't know if we're really seeing a big new on-ramp of people. And I don't know if meme coins is really what's going to get us there or what it is. So a lot of time for kind of thinking and questioning and really kind of gut checking where we are and what we're looking for and how we want to kind of row the boat with the right paddles in the right directions moving forward.
Yeah, I think we're both throwing. There's a lot pent up, I could tell, but we're both throwing out like 73 things. Just like I'm like, hey, Disco, I got a 300 part question for you. Like,
Yeah.
I guess where to start as far as like retail versus, if you go in the full macro scale. I mean, all these little things are coming out, like SIG, this huge global investment group, put 1.8 billion in Bitcoin ETFs. Like, and we're finding this out later because of all the 10Ks that are coming out, the quarterly filings. So people are combing through those to see who's actually nibbling. And
Exactly.
the answer is big investment firms are nibbling. Already BlackRock is saying that a lot of pension funds are already sniffing around. So it's going to happen. So as important as retail is in this cycle, I think, unfortunately, they're going to be reactionary to the price, which is going to be probably driven by these longer term pension funds and big investment houses to get in. And it kind of happened, I guess. Retail was more when the price went up. They're the ones who FOMO'd in last time. They got super burned, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're just going to, like, they barely even knew, like, it was on the radar again. but those all-time highs, like, I mean, you talk to people, I talk to people in everyday normie life, and they're like, "Nah, I'm not even looking at it.
Yeah.
I heard it's doing okay, but like they got burned by the
No, they're
snow.
scarred. They have like
Yeah.
PTSD. And
Yeah. I don't know if it's that. Well, I wouldn't know, but it sounds like they're super afraid, or they're like, it's not even that they're afraid, like they just turned away so hard that they're like, that clearly isn't for me. And what everybody always says about crypto is like when I talk to clients about it or whatever, if they bring it up, like, are you still into that? And they're like, the first thing they'll say is, oh, I missed that boat. Like everyone thinks it's almost like a startup, like, oh, I missed out on Amazon because I didn't get in, 2003 or whatever the early days of that was, when, toys.com and a million other complete shitty websites were like, at first you couldn't tell who was going to pop and who wouldn't. So I don't know. I think retail is going to be, they're going to react and be left behind just like the last time. But this adoption is going to be it's going to be slow, then fast, then it's going to retrace again. Just like, because the beauty of the place that we're in right now is we're in a bear within a bull. Like everybody, like we've had that bull feeling since what, like December, January, where even before it happened and everything went up, you're like, I'm feeling it. Like this feels different. And it went crazy. And runes, I think, like on the timeline, you could tell because a lot of people are disappearing. The engagement and the amount of people posting isn't as much. You can always count on B-Ways and Scribe and, the diehards out there to keep posting cool stuff and to keep digging. But a lot of people kind of go into the cracks of the woodworks and they disappear until it's a party again. And this is par for the course. Like, and I'm kind of excited because we started our podcast like literally 2 days into in a bear, and then the bull, like that whole fall thing last fall happened where it went up. And I told you I wish we had gotten started a little earlier, only because it's way better to start in a bear. But now we have this period of quiet and new folks who've seen gains finally and seen, Bitcoin go up and finally are like, oh, I stuck around and at least part of my portfolio paid off. Well, this is normal too, these retrenchments. And, I think let's call out the elephant in the room. Runes like is awesome. It's everything that Casey and Raph promised. It's super fun. It's like you and I could etch something right now, whip up a currency and do something fun like at the high school, or like teach kids about money. Like there's so many use cases for it. 99.9% of those use cases so far is Ponzi, and we have to see what utility emerges. I think RSIC is the one that is slowly paving the way, and they're huge. Like RuneCoin and RuneStab will have fun every day and post, and then they'll go silent for a couple of weeks, and they're probably making partnerships and building, and they're leaving it mysterious for us, which is, I think, is as long as they're building something cool and it's not just another way of Ponziing, I love it. It's fun, but we're in a pullback right now. The only news is just like Leonidas dog fans and RSIC diehards kind of squabbling from time to time. But other than that, like who's better and which one should go to 1 billion first and all that stuff. But I think there's an underwhelming feeling right now of runes people. I think a lot of us, I didn't think I'd be generationally wealthy, because you always think that, and you never get rich on the things you think you are. It's always literally just on holding Bitcoin. But I am surprised with how much Bonk and these other coins on Solana and ETH mooned, and how few people came to Bitcoin. So at this lull, I don't think it's going to last forever, but I am surprised because we don't have perfect infrastructure yet. UTXOs are different than Ethereum account-based stuff, but I am surprised at how crabby we are right now.
Well, I would say this as a response to that, and it's making me happy again, and it's making me more bullish because
I said something
I haven't.
happy.
A few things. I could unpack them all, but I'm going to go dumb and dumber on
Let's
you with.
unpack.
So there's still an opportunity to front run. Like that's kind of my net of it. And the big, at the end of the book or whatever, the big takeaway appears to always be it's an opportunity to stack sats before everybody figures it out. So all of the other things, I think that it's fun. I think that you do kind of get to this point of kind of assessing some of the things in your wallet right now, and you're just like, should I hold them or should I cash it out and turn a little bit that into a little bit of Bitcoin or whatever it is. But I do think that kind of just acknowledging that it wasn't this retail run up frenzy where, I really, really thought that like, a guy on the street was going to be like, oh, you love runes too. And like, I was going to see like runes hats and t-shirts and it was going to just blow up and everything, but it didn't get to that point. One thing that's kind of interesting, not necessarily related, but somewhat related is, I've told you before, and we've talked about, how Genesis and the Winklevosses, did a pretty good job kind of walking the Earn folks through and getting them whole from, the bankruptcy and things like that from that perspective. But it's kind of good to see that FTX is going to make everybody whole. And so you're starting to see kind of this long tail, kind of cleanup of the messes from the past. And something that's, I guess, kind of bullish too, is we haven't seen, any other massive shoes dropping or any, big 5 alert, kind of situations or fires. So in a weird way, the lack of that happening will probably help at some point to kind of clear the waters for those people to come back into the space and for us to be able to get new people to join, which would be what we're always looking for, right?
Yeah, for sure. You brought up the FTX thing. I just pulled up the article.
Okay.
I wonder is it plus 9% or 18%, whatever. They're saying like, hey, you get interest too. I want to hear from an FTX person. Like, is it the same game of like the Bitcoin you held then had a value? Let's say you had 100 grand of value at FTX and then you get 119 grand, but you don't get your Bitcoin back, or no, you actually get your Bitcoin back and you get money on top. Like something feels like bullshit to me here.
Yeah. And it does say, that the plan would see a whopping 98% of its creditors get 118% of their claims in cash within 60 days of court approval. So the cash part, the one,
I don't want
one
cash.
thing
Cash is worthless. Yeah. I want Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we invested in. Right. And the Gemini settlement did end up going, it was 1 Bitcoin for 1 Bitcoin, or, 1-to-1 on your assets. So, and they had absorbed, I think it was, close to 800 million in upside, like from the appreciation. Like I think they absorbed that in the settlement. But you're right. It looks like a great headline now, but I would like to kind of dig in and get a better handle on, what actually people could expect from that return. The other thing,
it just seems out, but just to harp on that, like whenever I see like, oh, we're giving you more back, like, yeah, it just, I guess I'm just reiterating what I just said. How like something feels, it just feels fishy there. Like
it feels convenient, right?
Like Bitcoin to cash, you get more cash because Bitcoin when FTX went down was probably at 17 to 22,000, right?
Yeah, I bet it was at 16.
Yeah, because that was before Gemini, the whole GPTC thing, right? Or not GPTC, whatever their
Genesis
companies. Yeah, whatever it was. So anyway, go ahead with your second point. But I just like something doesn't feel right, but maybe they're just saying like, oh, you deserve it because it's been held up so long, because they were going to try and revive the FTX brand, but I think they bailed on that, realizing like I'd almost revive it as a joke or a meme and just make it t-shirts, but like what person in their right mind to be like, oh, the lawyers behind it are reviving it? Yeah, sure, I'll put my money with you now that Sam's in jail. Like, don't care.
Yeah, and they also there was kind of a funny bit that's somewhat related to the Ohio State stuff, but they did a roast for Tom Brady, which, I'm going to side with Howard Stern on this question. Why would Tom Brady sign up for a roast at this point? Like, why would you go, okay, come on, let's just take the gloves off and hammer my reputation. Like, so that's a weird motivation in and of itself, but he got roasted about his crypto association investment. And one of the comedians was like, not Gronk didn't even fall for that. So it was kind of a funny bit.
But Gronk just settled a $2 million suit with something. So I don't know. I don't know if he's innocent, but why would Tom Brady, like an A-list? That's like an A-list actor. That'd be like if Angelina Jolie, or I'm probably dating myself. That'd be if Zendaya be like, Hollywood Squares. Like, you want me to be the host for 3 years, or like Family Feud? Like, yeah, that seems good for my acting career. Like, dude, you're as much as I hate to say this, you're certainly the most decorated quarterback of all time. Like, why would you let anyone roast you unless you literally need attention? Like, that to me seems,
and that's kind of what
absurd.
it has to be, because even if it's, a percent or whatever goes to charity, he could write a check to charity, or, and he could get that same, kind of outcome without having to do that. So it's always ego. If we want to go down that,
when he got divorced, he lost a ton of money, and the whole FTX thing, I'm pretty sure with the crypto thing, what did she say, 450 million, but he got raked. Because think about it, if you went through a divorce and you didn't know about that, then this happens, you'd be like, oh my God, like, I suspect he's not as wealthy as he might be signing autographs and like at the local strip mall, be like, Tom Brady, is that you, or are you a lookalike?
I'm at Mr. B's tickets. Come on by.
Throw me a pass. I want to see if you're the real Tom Brady. Let me do a button hook.
Button hook. The old Norris division button hook. Indeed. The Vikings are going to pull it back.
Oh, was that a Vikings play? The button hook's this is a button hook, right? It's just like it's
just a go and come back.
Right. Like, and hopefully you get the first down, right?
Yeah, it's a straight line and then a return, and you get hit on the return. Right.
I could run a button hook for Brady, or maybe a little slant.
A little slant. You need to, what else, my friend? Where do we want to go? So, Coinbase, they came out with their results and they were good. Like, we all kind of knew. The stock didn't pop as much as I thought that it would have, but there was an interesting piece in there that indicated that retail again is not near the 21 levels. So even though we had, kind of the ETFs and all that stuff going on in first quarter, and all the kind of, what we within the pond are like, oh my gosh, the gates are open, it's going to be craziness. It didn't necessarily translate from that side of it. But we are seeing, overall, they did generate a ton of money. And again, that leads me, and it kind of leads me to what I was going to say with FTX, was there is going to be a hole from FTX in terms of funding candidates for the upcoming election, because in 2022, for the midterm elections, SBF and FTX together, however they funded it, put more than $40 million into the system. So
don't forget Alameda Research, the research arm of FTX.
Yeah, that's what exactly.
The most criminal part of the whole thing.
Yeah, that part of the
just a small backdoor.
Bahamian resort, right?
Yeah.
But he backed primarily Democrats. So it's just interesting kind of seeing where the new kind of flow is going to go, which is much more Republican centric. There was just a report that came out from a big bank yesterday saying that a Trump presidency would be very bullish for Bitcoin overall. So I know I've been banging this drum and talking about it for, months and months. Like, it'll be interesting to see how and if this space plays out in terms of influence with the elections coming up. And there's really only two Senate races that I think people are really going to throw money into that are kind of crypto tied, and that's the Ohio Senate race as well as Montana. So again, more to follow on that, but I'm keeping my eye on it, because I think that during this lull, it's interesting because we could just see massive reactions, right when we get close to the election and or after. And what you were saying to kick off the show, from kind of the liquidity side of it and the Fed side of it and all that stuff, like, are they going to try to make the numbers look better and make the economy look better as we near November? And how's that going to play out on that? But again, the more that we can continue to, stack sats and keep to the plan and keep to not kind of competing with ourselves just to have activity, kind of the better we'll be. So kind of play it low, play it low in the lull of the bull. And I think you're going to be just fine.
Yeah. I just saw a stat that 20% of voters think crypto is an important issue in independent swing states. I assume Ohio is one of those. So it'll be interesting, regardless. I mean, I just feel like our choices for candidates, it's like, they're just not. It's like RC Cola or Tab. You're like, neither. I don't want either.
I want an orange crush, sir.
Yeah, give me some kombucha. But that's pretty interesting. I mean, 20%, it's not a tiny number. It's not a huge number, but it's there. And I think a lot of crypto voters are becoming, I think being in crypto for so many of us in here, we've seen, I think COVID started it, but you see under the hood of kind of the manipulation that goes on with news stories. And I'm sure mainstream media has always done this, but because we're so knowledgeable of this space, it's the first time where you just completely realize, like, wow, they're not afraid to recycle lies to meet their agenda. And now, we're in this election, and this is going to be, I honestly, like, what about RFK Jr.? Like, is he, I don't know if I know he's running. I don't even know if he's on the ballot in every state, but I don't know which party he'd draw more from. I know it's a traditional Democratic family, one of the biggest in the 20th century, but
right.
Is he going to draw from Democrats or Republicans? I mean, this is the first time I'm actually rooting for a House Senate divided, just so they can't pass crushing regulation. The one that makes me the most nervous, that probably won't get passed until we find out who's in office, is like they want to get rid of self-custody of crypto. They want the banks to handle it, and the banks, like you said, with lobbying, they'd be all too happy to oblige to take over and be in control of that. And there was a hero in the 30s, I think, they wanted to confiscate gold from people, and he was like, F you, arrest me, you're in, and like, I'm armed, you are not coming to get my gold. And they backed down. I think the government backed down, and that's a very abbreviated version of what happened. But
Right.
I think as holders of any asset, whether it's land or private keys or whatever, we should hold that sacrosanct and dear, because that's freedom of everything. That's I was going to say privacy, but that's a whole different issue, which, I think Bitcoin needs to, Edward Snowden just had a great tweet. I don't know if you saw it last week, but he was like, I've been saying this for 10 years. Bitcoin needs more privacy layers. And I know Monero's the one, I think Zcash too, but Monero's the one that really has just all the ring signatures and privacy just baked right in. But like Monero, no exchanges, central exchanges have them. Like the government's like, no. If it's totally opaque and private, that's like a hard no. And everyone's like, whoa, okay. Like, but now we're not seeing that technology go into Bitcoin and other things. And at some point I just worry that if all these Wells notices, I mean, who just got served? Robinhood got served. Yeah. So now we got Kraken, we got Coinbase, we got Robinhood. There's a couple more.
Uniswap. Let's not forget about Uniswap.
Jeez, the elephant in the room. So these Wells notices are served to these massive companies. Part of me is happy because they can kind of get together. I know Coin Center did a amicus brief for Samurai Wallet. So like, right. we're people aren't afraid to fight like they were 2 or 3 years ago, but it's just like the amount of fight that our taxpayer dollars go to fight its citizens for this clearly shows it's an organized effort on many fronts, from the White House and the executive branch all the way to the SEC to so many of these, and it's sad. It makes me sad, and it makes me want to kind of like take the high road and be cool about it, but also for our kids and our kids protect some of these freedoms before they're gone and we're looking way and way more like China.
Yeah.
We don't want a surveillance state. We don't want a central bank digital currency. We don't want that stuff. We don't want it where if somebody petitions or protests peacefully the wrong thing, that their bank accounts can get shut down. That level of control is like, it's fine if it's a happy, good government, but all that government has to do is change over to have people who want more control, which we've seen, and that's big, big trouble. So
Yeah.
that's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, no, and I'm honestly right there with you. And it's like we have, so exciting about the space overall was just the opportunity to, kind of break away from what's just so dysfunctional and broken. And what I fear is as the dollars get, larger and larger, and you see these results from, the bigger players, I'll go back to Coinbase, and it's like at the end of the day, Coinbase is going to be, a major institution, and is a major institution going to sacrifice some of the ethos in order to be, kingmaker and everything
Right.
from that perspective? And at the end, are we just going to sit there and look at this as a lost opportunity to really do what was so exciting and motivating about, creating a new way to transact and a new currency and all the things that were so beautiful about it, especially from the developing nation status and all these different ways, and how we've seen that it can help, as freedom money, so to speak, and all these great things. And if it just gets too co-opted by, backroom Washington decisions, and to your point, I don't even know if you can, I think it may be short-sighted to be like, oh, it's Republicans, or oh, it's Democrats, or oh, it's this I think we're probably talking about factors that are much larger
I think so too.
and aren't necessarily related to the folks that are representing the roles at this point. So it's just, as I say, like it's kind of an introspective and esoteric tone that we found ourselves in this week, which is I enjoy it because I like kind of gnawing on this sort of stuff and kind of thinking about that, and not just, chasing what's kind of trending and what's going on. So I think it's a powerful kind of exercise and thoughts to go through, but it's not always the most uplifting.
No, it's not. And but we've that's why we're here, though. We've got to address it. We've got to. I don't even fight's the right word, but it's like you got to educate people, or do people care? Like, again, you go back to Ohio State or the Tom Brady, like it's in vogue again, obviously, to hiss and boo at crypto. And, given FTX, like, and as far as the political stuff, Sam Bankman-Fried, like he was creating a moat for sure. And he had the Democrats in his pocket. And now, obviously, the Democrats are doubling down on what a scam crypto is. Maybe part of that made them feel super burned, but obviously retail got super burned by that complete con artist douchebag, and that whole Three Arrows Capital. Like there's a whole litany of them that went down, but FTX was the final biggest one. I have a little more faith in Coinbase and Brian Armstrong. I think he's a little more, I don't want to say libertarian, but he's a little more, but like you said, if you can create a moat for your business and you're the only one, actually the custodian of the ETFs, or you've got like 9 or 8 of the 11, right. I know Kraken's in there. I don't want to say they don't care about retail as much, but Kraken's way more, I don't want to say secure, but they're focusing more on like internal infrastructure and probably bigger clients and stuff like that. So we've got them, but yeah, you certainly don't want one crypto firm to be the powerhouse, and you certainly don't want it to be them paired with Wall Street. So yeah, who do you back? Do you back Fairshake? You brought that up before, that they were the political action group who's funding certain campaigns, right? And I think
Correct.
A16Z and those big Silicon Valley guys are behind it to to forward their needs. Yeah. So I think part of it is knowing, like, we degen or just Bitcoin crypto normie or crypto, the front lines, if you will, are our needs aligned with their needs. And at
Thank
some point we have to hitch that wagon, or, hitch to that train, but we have to keep a close eye on it. And remember, we can always hard fork. We can always do this. And at the end of the day, like if BlackRock and the ETFs own 54% and they start paying devs to actually be a part of Bitcoin Core, like, yeah, then we might have a problem. But forking isn't hard, but then you just have to get to a bunch of people to agree. And you have to get your country to not be like, this is the official only. And that's what it feels like to me. They're trying to control the narrative. And I think a lot of people think with ETFs we're home free. And we are in some ways for adoption, probably for bigger companies and entities. But I don't think we are in terms of self-sovereignty at all.
Yeah. And for adoption, you're talking with those entities really about holding and investing, not necessarily participating in the space, right? So it's a different sort of adoption than what we're talking about when we're like, oh, a lot of people are going to come into the ecosystem and get going on this or that. So it's there's a lot to think about on that side of it. And I don't know, like kind of it became this claim, well, we just need some regulation. It's like, okay, but what does that mean? And what's going to get kind of shoved into this regulation side of it under the guise of consumer protection or national security, as we've seen from, Warren jumping up and down anytime there's a skirmish, it's crypto's fault somehow, some way.
Yeah. I don't even know why she's banging that drum. I think it's almost like more Democrats need to stand up. I didn't realize that I don't even know if this is true, that more Republicans tend to be in crypto. I think there's a lot of people who came from the Democratic side, and I think it's pulling everybody. It's making us realize that, especially in a two-party system, that you're debating like this versus that. It's always the same 4, 5, or 6 things. And we're realizing like these aren't my issues anymore. Like, not that some of these things aren't important, but they're not the most important issues to me. And it's like a smoke screen distraction. It's like, do you want Tab or do you want RC Cola Splenda Light? You're like, no, I don't want either of these octogenarians. Like, give us younger people who are more in touch with innovation. And and I said, I've posted, and I think I say this once a week or once every other week, like, somebody from this field, like, there's a lot of smart people here. Maybe people from here need to run for office. I'm sure, like, I've thought about it before, and then I'm like, you probably get chewed up and eaten alive because it's such a dog eat dog world, and they're going to find stuff on you, find stuff on your family that's just, that first they'll look for real stuff, and then, if you're clean, they can't find it. They're like, well, let's just resort to lies.
Throw this at you.
Yeah, and that's terrifying because you probably don't even know how nasty the game is because there's so much money involved and so much corruption involved. You probably couldn't even dream at how bad and corrupt it is. And anywhere you go out, you don't know if someone's got like one of those like shotgun mics, like zoomed at you, like anything you say, or like, how do someone's asking me a question, some random person, and I'm one of those people like, hey, I'll talk to anybody. And then, all of a sudden, you've been Dan Quailified. Like, you just look, you look like an idiot speaking, or worse, you say something at the wrong moment in the wrong time, and you're just blackballed, or you're just, you're basically canceled for saying what you believe in, or getting tripped up on something you don't fully understand yet. Anyway, so.
No, I love it. And I'm going to spitfire some quotes or some stats from Stand with Crypto, which is armed by Coinbase, but it's not a PAC, so it's slightly different, but just some stats. 52 million Americans own crypto. The demographic that is younger, 60% are Gen Z and millennials, and more diverse, 41%.
Slow down, because I'm writing this down. I love stats. So 52% of
52 million
Americans. And there's like 350 million of us or whatever.
350 is
and that's
a good round.
Kids, right? So 1/7 or something. But of adults, it's probably like a quarter or 30% or something. So it's a decent size. So, okay. So sorry, that's the
Yeah.
first stat.
So
What,
within that subset, 60% are Gen Z and millennials.
so why are they booing at Ohio State? What the hell?
No, that's and then more diverse. So 41% of that 52 million identify as racial minorities.
Interesting.
Then 87% of, I guess, everybody believes that the financial system needs updating, whereas they say 45%, and I want to say this is 45% of the 52 million, will not back anti-crypto candidates.
What percent of that? 40%?
45% are going to be single issue voters, meaning that they will not back a anti-crypto candidate. And here's the interesting part.
That's a big number right there, because there's your 20%
I
right
know
there.
you look at swing state, and that's what I'm getting at. And this is just to blow everyone's mind a little bit. Out of that 52 million, only 18% of them are Republicans, 22% are Democrats, and 22% are independents.
So 18 Republican, 22 Democrat. What was the last one?
22% are independents.
I mean, I fall in that last camp now. Independent, like give me a new party, like fiscally sane and socially live and let live. How's that for a party?
And pause off, right?
Yeah, like leave me alone and don't be a douchebag, but let other people live their lives, whatever that is, or as long as it doesn't harm others, and quit trying to control them. But there's no, I guess JFK Jr. it's RFK Jr., right? Like,
correct.
He's got a lot of interesting stuff, but the chances of him winning, I assume, we could look at Polymarket, but I assume they're pretty light. He's obviously the most pro crypto of the three candidates. I know Trump came out and said he was pro crypto, but he wasn't in his last term. I have a feeling he knows that will help him win votes, but I could be wrong. Maybe he's learned more about it or something, but I suspect it's just that he knows that's where the momentum is. And like you said, what was it? 45% are single issue voters.
So what's 45% of 50 or 52? You know what I mean? That's a lot
5 times
of
4 is 20. That's 20 plus million people.
Yeah. So,
and if that's in swing states, that can be the difference. But it's like, yep. It's hard for me to celebrate no matter what happens in this next election. It's like, yay. Like I don't even know what to root for. I want to root for crypto and innovation in this country and freedom of speech and privacy. And I don't know if anything is fully in that camp.
Like, is anything from what you just said aligned with the pre-existing two-party system? You know what I mean? Or is it just completely outside of it and won't fit? And is that where the frustration is really based on? It's like, you can see that there's younger people, you can see that younger people are voting more, and it's easier to vote, if we're honest. Like, it used to, if you can mail in, like, that's a lot easier than what it used to be, to get off and do that. So are we like just shoving a freaking square in a circle again, where it's like, these, and that's what I'm getting at with the whole lobbying side of it and all this. It's like, are people really are they just going to end up backroom settling for their own kind of interests on that and have that represent, we put regulation forward? Like, because who really cares about like the stable coin bill? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing really in it. It's like a talking point to be like, hey, we made legislation, but it's like, dude, it's not going to do anything. Like, I looked at it and there's nothing in it. Like, it's like a definition of it. It's just, so that's where it kind of goes. Is I fully agree with you, and it's a call to anybody who, it would just be so great to have people that are as smart as they are developing things in this space put some of that effort and energy towards, kind of creating a new opportunity or option within, kind of leadership of this country, because I do think that there's really a great chance for that. I think we're all in this kind of holding period of waiting for kind of the older generations to kind of step aside and get out of the way. There we go, sir. And,
Well, I remember in the last
and
show you were telling me, you're like, hey, wait, we
yeah,
should do it where each section, if we're going into politics, I might as well
yeah.
let everyone know I'm in front of the White House with a silhouette flag behind me. That
I know it's distracted me in such a good way though. Like I'm totally into the visuals,
well, I was
into
getting
the
kind of
visuals.
sick of the Bitcoin background. Like we gotta mix it up a little. I have a bunch of new ones, but yeah, we'll play with this one for a while. Get jar
Yeah.
people, like
Yeah, they're
try
like,
to get
who is it?
attention. Anyway, so sorry, I
So
rudely interrupted you right in the middle of a montage.
well, it's just I mean, I just think we need to be careful of how it's being presented and if it really is representative of what your core concerns are. And I think that as we go back to kind of looking at it from a, more esoteric space perspective of what drew us into, kind of drinking this Kool-Aid and getting, pilled into this industry, are those are those morals and ethos really represented when they're just saying, hey, we want to keep American innovation here, and hey, we need to protect consumers with a stable coin bill. It's like, well, dude, that's not getting us to where we need to be. We need to get it to the point where we don't have these little snipe jobs coming from the SEC every other week to any other company, and wondering who's the source of it and why they're there and how it's going to come out, and then ultimately know that they're just going to drain people's accounts with legal fees, and they're just going to keep doing that. And how is that going to help a Kraken? How's that going to help a Uniswap? And what did Kraken and Uniswap do to deserve, kind of this penalty and punishment? So it's great to see as a byproduct that these companies are starting to align and fight, but it's unfortunate that they have to fight kind of this fake fight that isn't even, most of the time when people look at it agnostically, there's not much of a legal case from some of these SEC Wells notices. It's more of just a time stall and just kind of a throw the ball down the hall and distract the dog for a while.
Yeah, I keep going back to, I feel like there's something we're missing. Like the SEC is paid for by us taxpayers. They're now going after not the five big, well, actually probably is Kraken,
Probably
Coinbase, Uniswap. Like they're going after
Bitrex.
Bitrex. Is that one of them? So they're going
Yeah.
after some of our biggest, right? There's a bunch of them. I like, part of me is like, is Gary like, is somebody behind pushing so hard with this choke point 2.0, or 2.01 now, it's like it just keeps evolving. Like it's certainly coordinated. Or is there someone that's like double agent? Like this is crazy conspiracy talk, but could Gensler be a true crypto fan? He knows maybe he's on his way out. And if they go after everybody at some point, it's easier to fight because now everybody's
Spread too thin.
nobody wanted to fight until they had no choice. And now once one person fought and they're seeing some success, like now everyone's like, well, crap, if I have the funds or a backer, let's go for this. And it's exposing the SEC. I mean, maybe it's the best thing to happen as long as the courts aren't totally biased and against you. But I don't know. Like it just seems odd that unless choke point 2.0 is just meant to scare the crap out of everybody and try and get people to be like, I'm not going to put Bitcoin miners on my premises. I'm not going to, like, they're just afraid to do everything. I don't know. Like, but it's certainly stifling innovation, and it certainly is, we grew up in America, I love this country, but like, I just feel like maybe because we're of the age where we have the kids where you want to make sure the baton gets passed off when we move on. And right now it just feels like our own government is using technology to try and pry and have tabs on everything we do. And obviously you want to catch the bad guys, but if there's no privacy and personal freedoms, what do you have left then as a person and citizen, unless you're in that elite upper ring where you're probably way more immune to this stuff?
Yeah. And, I don't know if you were sitting down and you were going to, look to invest in, mining Bitcoin, yourself, like, is that a genuine concern that you can get rugged on that, and that's the sort of thing that's just super, kind of unsettling to think about, is that you could choose strategically to make an investment, and then you're worried that it could get kind of rugged from you after you do that. So there's all that sort of uncertainty. And to your point about, is there something more to it? Like, oh, they're doing these Wells notices across the board to everybody. Oh, nice. You're doing these Wells notices across the board. Why'd you approve the ETF? And where does that fit in? So it's that all of it, it's like a weird jigsaw puzzle, and I'm totally distracted by the new background because I kind of like it quite a bit.
Yeah, now I realized I had a bunch of credits, and they're expiring tomorrow, which they never used to expire. So I went on to was it 123RF? It was one of those, and I found like there was so many crappy ones where people. It was most of the backgrounds they provided were literally like a hacker in a dark room and he's stealing your Bitcoin. I'm like, oh gee, yeah, it was just, and it like they literally had on like a ski mask, and they were like hacking in like ski mask and gloves. You're like, I'm pretty sure hackers don't look like that, but it's like you create the illusion. But this one I found, this one was pretty good. There's probably others. Maybe I'll spring them on and we'll see which ones we like. And once you get your green screen, you can do that too, and maybe we can even do it in unison, because I think I can do it. Yeah, I think I can do it for you as well. So
does that graph ever change?
This one?
Yeah, I think it's constantly the same up. Like I was like, oh, is that deviated all? And I don't think so. It's just it's a recurring pattern.
But this is actually tied to my it's a heart rate monitor. It's tied to my heart rate.
Oh.
I've got those little suction cuppy things on my chest. And,
Ooh. We're constantly doing a EKG of sorts.
We are. Yeah, we had a ticker, and I've got this plugin for a ticker, but the ticker's not working. I keep pushing the button thinking something's going to happen, but I got to figure out how to actually get it to work. But yeah, we're playing different backgrounds and different things to keep the mood and let people know. Because when you scroll through Twitter, until you click on it, I think you actually click on it and you have to hit the volume button to show that to let them know you want to hear it too and not just see it, because we'd be so interesting as just silent talking heads up here.
Just compelling visuals. One thing that would be kind of interesting, because we're even talking about a ticker, like what do you put on the ticker, but one story that was somewhat interesting to get into was, and it goes in the runes world, but the market cap of runes. We were talking about kind of how they rolled out, and we're kind of in a bit of a crab, kind of almost like waiting to see what they're cooking in the oven. Oh, that's awesome. What's cooking in the oven and where it's coming from. But what's the status now? Because I think it was that Magic Eden wasn't updating properly on the market cap for the runes, but it still has dog go to the moon. Now it looks way different.
Well, here's a good one. Yeah, somebody was complaining about that this morning. I don't know, but this one, I saw somebody post like their 8 favorite things. Sat Screener's pretty cool. Now I don't know if they're off or not. Let's just see. This one's pretty cool. So Dog to the Moon, it looks like their market cap is 308 versus RSIC 219. So it seems like each day these two
they're flipping.
Yeah, they're flip flopping. It looks like the volume on the Dog Go to the Moon. So I don't know. I have Leonidas muted because I just can't see all caps all day long. But so I don't know. I never know how hard that pump is pushing. But I know there's a lot of people who repost and echo that stuff. Because that's really the marketing tactic. It's just like stay on
attention.
Attention. Just keep posting it. Whereas RSIC will go have announcements, and then they'll be building. They'll kind of go quiet for a while. So it's kind of two different things.
What was the speculation? There was stuff over the weekend about our teams affiliated, and didn't RSIC deny something that was a rumor that they were tied to one of these other ones?
Oh yeah. So I think that was the FIHU, which is obviously rune number 1, which has a market cap of 2.23 billion, which it really doesn't, because they only let 1% get mined and they're holding the other 99%. So there was a really funny tweet by the FIHU team that just, I don't know why they posted this unless they're just shit posting. It was basically like team allocation 99%, public allocation 1%, which obviously is a mockery of the whole, like, when Solana and all these coins go public, the VCs are just, they have their tendrils everywhere getting a drop in every which way, shape, or form. But to keep 99% and give 1 is just absurd. But they denied any ties or connections with FIU. They said, we don't know who etched it. We don't know who did it. Now, I would seem to trust them. I'm not heavily bagged in FIHU, so I think I did get a couple. I'm sure I overpaid for them at this point. But I figure at some point, 99%, I hold something that will get airdropped FIHU. So I mean, they even said early on, they're like, don't mint this stuff, because there's, like, all will be revealed in time. So to me, like, I'm not going to go spending a ton of money chasing runes. Satoshi Nakamoto, that's another one I minted. That one's pretty down hard. We haven't really heard anything from the team there, which is kind of disappointing at this point. Like, it's like, come on, let's step up, just like at least try and identify the real account or something. So I don't know.
I don't think that's helping. Like, you have one individual, a founder of a coin, who's quite vocal about their association with it, and can't get out of the headlines with news, or with,
right,
just all capping. But there is a lot of, I've always been drawn to Era Mystery. Like, I've always thought it was a really good strategy and really a good way to build buzz and get excitement. But at some point, you need to feed a little bit of info just to kind of have people validate what they're invested in and what they're holding on to and what their hopes are.
Yeah, and I guess at any time, like, because we're at 13 letters now. The 12 letters don't even start unlocking until, I believe it's August of this year. So we have all summer for 13, which in hindsight, it was pretty smart of Casey, because, obviously he's not necessarily into rune coins, but he wanted to keep it simple. But, he knew degeneracy would be here. I think it was pretty smart to start super high, because I think we all agreed with when Scribe was on the show that, like, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 letters is probably your sweet spot, where you've got the name of the, the different collections or whatever, whether it's, MFers, or I'm just going off the top of my head, or Node Monks, or whatever, whichever one you want to pick. But, this is kind of a head start to see what's possible and what's not. I guess this is a good time as any to talk about the epic SAT that went for 33.3 Bitcoin, or at the time of the purchase, $2.1 million. And that went to the NeuroRealm team. And, I looked at what they made. It was, I gotta say, it was pretty cool. Like, I mean, if you're gonna etch on an epic SAT, like, obviously the maxis don't even believe that stuff exists, and they think you're just fools. But obviously those of us in the space who love art and love rare sats, like almost like stamp or coin collecting, like etching on minting an ordinal on an epic sat or inscribing rather, is super cool, right? And I don't think they disappointed. I mean, they've been working on that for a long time. It's very interactive. Like, of all this pre-rune stuff I sold, I don't know what I had that got me one of those, but I did get one, and I saw the price spike up to like 0.07, 0.08, and I was like, I'm tempted, but I think I asked Stephen Miller, I'm like, should I sell this? He goes, sell it to me. Yeah. I'm like, oh wait, that's a price.
Oh, that's a hold.
He's like, which one do you have? I'll take a look and I'll buy it. And I was like, well, maybe I'm not telling now. There's a little hiccup there in the feed. Hopefully it's better now. But so I didn't sell it. And obviously they got epic, which is which I don't get, because it's already, they did a 99%, 1%, I think. You could mint some of those, but that's 12 letters. So unless there's a hidden letter here, I'm not sure, like 12 letters haven't been done yet, unless it hasn't minted yet. So I don't know. But the question becomes, is a rare sat or an epic sat alone rune worthy? I guess if they can make more than 33 Bitcoin on the ecosystem and etch something super cool, I guess it is. you know?
I think for sure.
Oh,
Like
okay.
yeah, no, I think that, and correct me if my logic is off point, but you're basically essentially getting phenomenal real estate, right? Like that's kind of how I view it. And like if you're believe in this, and as you've said for a long time, these are things that you can look at it from the short term, but you also look at it from 20, 50
Mm-hmm.
years from now. And having Central Park real estate or something like that is ends up usually being a very appreciated asset. And having a differentiator, and especially being around, I mean, the Epic Sat's tied just to the 420 or 419 420 event and all that. Like I think that would be stuff that I think would be kind of maybe the next wave of looking at, how can you kind of corral, these slices of real estate and maximize them. So that's my initial reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two sides to the coin. There's the super cool factor of like that's etched in history forever. Nobody, there's only four epic sats, and one has been the like you said, the one on 4/20/24 has now been inscribed. It is no longer a virgin epic sat. We know that there is one other that has been sequestered. I think Sat Hunter, all that hard work. I mean, I think he literally went through billions of dollars, just like, I don't know what the max you could do, $1 million at a time. And he found an epic sat, which is just freaking legendary, no pun intended, because there's actually a legendary sat, which I think is the next one, where it's the halving and the difficulty adjustment happens at the same time. So that's a halving sat that has that added piece, and I believe that one's a legendary.
I think you're correct.
And then I think the mythic one is the like initial, like the first sat or something. But
I just gotta interject again. We talk about this sometimes, and we're like, why isn't everybody on the street talking about runes? And
the
why isn't the
mythic
crossing guard
sats.
at school? And we're like, yeah, but you really know the difference between the epic and the legendary and the mythic, because there's a lot of delineation on that.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
true.
might make sense for a legendary, but not. But by the way, it makes me even more excited. Like now I'm getting re-engaged, because all that stuff does kind of tickle the brain and get you interested in possibilities. And maybe when you have these crabs within a bowl or whatever, it could be a blessing, because it could spurn you to focus on the things that you kind of backburnered when you're just dealing to kind of headlines and fire sales and stuff like that. So I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the epic is now, it's not worth as much as it was at the beginning, but it's worth, I think, market cap. I just went into the screen. It's like 63 million bucks. So the market cap is certainly higher. So they, again, dollars and cents. And remember, they hold that epic sat too in that artwork. Now, could you sell that artwork for 50 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoin? They probably have no intention of selling it, because, you can obviously inscribe more on that epic sat too, which is kind of an interesting thought and theory. Like, I think some people are like, no, leave the epic sat like a virgin sat, but if you inscribe on it, you can inscribe more. And obviously you can inscribe children and grandchildren and stuff like that. So you certainly have a base for which to have a ton of credibility. It just now boils down to like Decentralized, which is the CyberKongz guys, or Epic, or Dog of the Moon, or RSIC, or any of these, or Satoshi Nakamoto, or the new one, DAT, which is Dope
Dope ass
Ass
ticker.
Ticker, which I thought was cool. I was testing out the Nuke minting tool through the Telegram bot, and I got a couple of those, and I think it's since gone down like everything else has in this thing. But will these things carry value? I think more people have to get into the space, but that Binance report shows that it's certainly better than BRC20. Instead of 2 transactions, you only need one for transferring runes. So it's already cleaner. It's way less tech. It takes up way less mempool space in the system to run this protocol. So I think it's a net positive. Now we just have to see who emerges as the meme coins and the best use cases and what this thing turns into. And we're in a lull right now, but honestly, I'm here for it and I'm not going anywhere. I know the timelines are getting more quiet, and we'll find things to write the runes report about and ordinals and all that stuff. But it's even in the lulls, it's fascinating, and I think you said at the beginning, it's time when you recollect your thoughts and kind of figure out like, what do I want? Where do I want to be? What maybe some of the stuff I get rid of. Some of it we were airdropped so much stuff, and now we're getting airdropped. It almost feels like we were complaining about the airdrops. It was like, you're clogging my wallet. And now we're like, where are my free airdrops? My free worthless
No,
airdrops,
it's like, yeah, it's like crickets. It was so fun, and they go down and like check in the morning, be like, oh, what's this little darling? And now it's like, oh, same number. Okay, that's what I had yesterday. That's not that sweet, but yeah. So I think that's a tremendous point, and I think that's something that I certainly echo. And it's like we've talked about and alluded to like all these other ideas that we want to cook up and hatch and build and develop and get into, and having a little bit of time to do that and not being as reactionary and being able to kind of reset your strategy is a good time and a good way to look at what we're looking at in the next couple of, I don't even know how long, because we're only one event away from everything changing, and then we'll be back on the treadmill quite quickly.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll go back to, I mean, what definitely has taken the back seat is ordinals for sure. Like, I'm just trying to think of any collections that, everybody is like, oh, no, monks are down. It's like, no, everything's kind of, even Nat Cats. Yeah. You and I we announced this in the last show, right? We both are. I think
not you. We didn't mention, I don't think that I think it was just me at that point.
Oh, okay. So I hadn't bought mine. So I bought mine the next day. So I FOMO'd into what Disco did. But I've always wanted one. And I know, even you and I talked like, is this worth it? Is it worth it? Like, I love different technologies, and the DMT technology I think is pretty cool. So I got a Gen 1 Nat Cat too. Let's just look around and see like what's going on here. So there's the blob. Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, is that epic sat for a rune? And that art, like, thank goodness it was someone like Blob and NeuroRealm, because at least it's kind of a cool cultural thing. It's not OMB, but it's got the OMB vibes kind of thing. It's more like I watched their video. It's very philosophical. It's very like in the year 2049, man and machine and crypto merge or whatever. And so it's a cool concept. And, it's kind of like, retain your autonomy, and like the message is cool. Going on an epic sat, like, I guess the more I think about it, it's like, good for them. Like, what a power move. Like, we're getting that.
And doesn't it have Grimes?
Epic sat.
Isn't Grimes on it?
So interestingly, I read about that this morning. So Grimes has, her name's like Claire Boucher or Duchert or something. So Claire Duchert, Grimes, made this algorithm that you can use her voice, and any royalties you get is 50-50. So she's like, any partner I have is always 50-50. And it's the same with AI. So kind of a cool stance by her to just go for it and kind of like jump in all in. I don't know if that means they have to give her 50% of anything they do. That would seem, because she just comes in and sings at the end. But again, I need to play around with actually seeing, because it's a live interactive thing that I think evolves with blockchain. So it's a dynamic generative piece of art, which is super cool. But the Grimes thing is not her, but it's the AI voice generation of her, which is like, again, super, super cool. So Ordinal Maxi Biz, they're at 4.0.
Let me just jump back on that for a second, just because we're kind of free flowing here. But it's interesting how, we talk about Grimes. She essentially open sourced, and said, hey, go ahead and use this, which was an embrace to a degree of seeing the capabilities of AI. And it was somewhat interesting because last week Washed Out put out a song, and the video was the first, I believe it was the first video that was completely AI generated. And I saw some people going back and forth like, oh, that sucks so bad. I can't believe they would do that. And then some other people were like, dude, it's a new artistic tool. It actually fit pretty freaking well. Like, it was a pretty cool video. And are we going to go against artists for trying to play around and utilize new technology? Because that kind of goes against, what? So then we didn't want people to use electric guitars. We didn't want people to use synthesizers. We didn't want people to use, drum machines or anything like that. So it's a whole nother concept and show, but it's just another thing to kind of think about is how are we looking at artists utilizing AI tools? And it even goes to us, right? Like, we used AI when we were sitting around kind of birthing, our identity as a brand. And is it something that should be frowned upon or celebrated? And how does that all play out? So interesting to see how the Epic team utilized Grimes, and maybe that will be, a little timestamp in history as well.
Yeah, and it shows you that they had fun with it, and that I know they've been working on this, I guess, for a long time. I saw even somewhere that we're working on it a year, but that would be almost
Yeah.
the beginning of ordinals. But regardless, and I know too, there was a lot of names and artists, a lot of people were involved in etching it and the art and making it possible. I know Owl's team was thrown in there. I'm not sure what role they played, but there were so many folks that made that happen. It's cool, and it's certainly for our ordinals rune space. It's a cool testament of kind of what you can do and what can be done. Now, what utility or what lift we as fans of Epic, we'll call it Epic, not cubed, quadded, I guess, but
Epic to the third.
no, it's the fourth. It's 4 epics, and that's only
Quadric.
12 letters. So I wonder if they have like a missing letter in there. I don't know how you can go 12 unless like spaces don't count. I don't know why I'm letting that one bother me, but we're at 13. Like, you can't be at 12 yet. But like, will we see benefit from Epic? And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, but the bigger picture, right, is we should see benefit from bringing more artistic thought and creation into etching. You know what I mean? So overall, that's what we've been talking about and looking at is, can we have new entrants and new, people using this canvas differently and utilizing, top tier talent from even outside of the space, or those that are friendly to the space, seeing that manifest in new outputs and new outcomes is definitely something to kind of, give a little high five to.
Yeah, and anyone who pushes the limits in this space, like we may not see a utility and stable coins and dexes on runes or L2s for a while, but it's coming. And whether the stable coin is L2 or whether it can be on runes itself, we'll see. But it's cool art wise and everything wise for people to keep pushing forward. And that's why I keep saying, like, the zeitgeist to me of the art community, like my alma mater, I won't say which one, they just reached out to me and they're like, hey, we're reaching out to distinguished people like yourself for going to business school, and we have an art collective that we collect art and from famous artists all over the world, and you can invest in this fund, and that's a good way to kind of preserve wealth through bull and bear. And it's a cool proposal. And I responded immediately, and I was like, have you considered Bitcoin ordinals or even on-chain NFTs? Like, I'm huge into that space. I love it. And I got no response. I'm like, whatever. Like, you're not that they have to be into that, but sometimes I think there's a lot of people out there in traditional art there's a lot of degeneracy out here, but I suspect there's a lot of stuff that will have a ton of value. I mean, you just had MoMA, the head curator, I think, said at MoMA, they're like, oh, digital art and ordinals, like, this is here to stay. So, and obviously we all here know that, but I hate to say we're early, but at some point, these collections, these crypto punks, these Bitcoin shrooms, or whatever have you, Nullish, Xolo, whoever, like, these things, early isn't everything, but early definitely matters.
It's something, you know what I
It's
mean?
something.
And yeah, you're exactly right. And if you really, and I'm not going to, you know, I'm not an art historian or anything, but I do, kind of follow pop culture and trends and where things are at. And kind of the last big artistic movement that I saw from a physical perspective was really kind of street art and graffiti, and how that really kind of captured the imagination and kind of came up with hip hop, and
Right.
kind of changed how we looked at things. And I think that it's exciting to see some of these forward thinking artists, kind of pave the way early on this. You look at some of, your Lemon Haze, and this, it's just fun to
Right.
know that we have these people that understand they have a new canvas to play with, and that we can kind of start seeing new outcomes. You see some people messing around in cool ways with photography and seeing how to kind of fragment that stuff. And so that's just very engaging. And I do think that the seekers and the creators will land in here and kind of really figure out what the capabilities and possibilities are.
Yeah, and then you got Harvey Rayner, who's coming out with Chat Fuckers. And if any of you guys haven't heard of that, like, let's put it this way: when Stephen Miller gets excited about a project, then I get really, really excited. Actually, Stephen Miller, and you know who else this was super early on the radar who loves art is Brennan. So you get those guys excited about something, and like Brennan had this thing on my radar like 4 months ago, and we got an allow list because we did a Q&A with Harvey. But this is like beyond cool. He think like, whereas CryptoPunks are, they're pixelated, they're on chain, the little eyes and the different hair and the glasses, and you're kind of just mixing and matching, right, for the 10,000K PFP. He did all that. This is way more abstract art, so I don't even think that it looks anything like that. But he did it all generatively and programmatically. He coded the hair and the eyes and you just have to see it. Like, the art, it might not be for everybody, but it is very unique. He started a Discord months and months and months ago. He's been in the space. He's been in ETH. He was a part of the one of the early art box collection, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was a very successful one. But he spent months just asking like degen collectors, PFP collectors, like, what traits do you love, what do you want to see, and he did it all programmatically. And the mint price, honestly, I think it's 0.0013. It's like,
I can afford that.
it's like $100. And I'm not saying everyone has $100, but if you're in this space and you're collecting art, like, and you can get an allow list, I would highly recommend you picking up one, a primary or secondary. And I'm not being paid to say this. Like, I just think his stuff is super interesting. Like I said, when Stephen Miller gets excited about something, because he's following everything in art, both PFPs and obviously like fine generative art. And I'm always like, I don't care about your top 50. Give me your top 2 or 3. And finally reached out. He's like, here it is. This is the one I'm super excited about. I'm like, all right, well, I'm already on the
Well,
allow list. That's on my radar. Like, I know about this, because of Brendan, obviously. So, um,
see, I see how it naturally comes. Like, if you went back to the beginning of the show and then we organically weave around and then end up just going back to what we're subconsciously most geeked up about, which for a while has been, what can we see with art? How can art, exist and evolve on Bitcoin? Like, now kind of the cache is cleared and we're able to kind of focus on that. And I think that's what, when we look at, doing this show and connecting with the brilliant and smart audience and folks we have. And if you do like what you're hearing, please subscribe or, smash a like button or any of those sort of cliche requests. But it is very validating, because it's like, dude, I'm not wrong, because I'm not wrong for being interested in this. And it's not my fault that nobody at the soccer field or the cocktail party really wants to go down the rabbit holes with me, and they have no idea I'm speaking gibberish. But the fact that we can go through this, look at the macro, and then settle again, talk a little degen, but then really get genuinely excited about the possibilities and seeing what people are doing, manifesting some of the capabilities of art. Like, dude, that's what's really exciting to us. And really, I don't mean to speak for you, but it's
no,
certainly
100% coming back to the art is, for me, the most exciting part of it. And now, runes can be tied into art, and we're seeing very rudimentary, but we haven't even seen anything yet where art can change based on the amount of runes you hold. And again, that could be very Ponzi, but it also could be, if you just have to mint it and pay the mempool fees, if they're low, that could be super cool. Or maybe if you hold a weird amount, it could be a prime number. Like there's just so many cool ways you could do it to make the art pop more and make it generative, dynamic. Because to me, the coolest art changes, like Brennan's reversions, like they change with every block, or they change as time goes on. And there's so many different collections doing that, where things are changing and evolving over time. And to me, like, no paintings carry their own beauty, and sketches and drawings and sculptures, but there's something about on chain and hopefully foreverness, or as long as civilization lasts, that as long as a couple miners are running, securing the network, that this art will live forever. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I don't know how to tie this in, but I'm just going to throw it out there. It may be a little left field, but we've been thinking, or at least I've been thinking about, when we were saying, are we really being represented right, as an industry with, the political action groups and all that stuff? Is that really true to the core? And it also leads me to kind of this thought of, people really drummed up the value or the opportunity with meme coins on Bitcoin. And that's going to be kind of the gateway, to all of this. And I just don't know in my soul if I think that's really aligned properly. And when we talk about what, art can do, and people exploring, the capabilities, and what you're saying about, the different elements of kind of gradual generation and new versions and things like that, like that might be what excites people more, and that might be what is really, kind of something that we should be focusing more on as a space than just, hey, this one's got a funny ticker, and we want to motivate our people not to sell and to hold and to take it up, and like, I don't know if it's necessarily as organic as looking at this brilliance of being able to etch on different sats, and what we're talking about, like with the epic sat, like that's the sort of thing that really kind of captures the imagination. And I just don't know if meme coins are necessarily the true representation of what kind of this next generation can bring about. So I know it gets bandied about like, oh, we just need this meme coin to go to the moon and all that. It's like, do we really? Like, is that really what's going to do it for us? Or is that, just a narrative that's getting a lot of coverage? So just kind of throwing that out there to think about.
So you're sorry, just to clarify, you're saying,
Yeah,
like, obviously everything was rune focused up into the halvening, and obviously these last couple weeks after the halvening. But you're saying, should we be focusing more on the art, or just not focusing on the meme coins and just trying to cap lock boost?
Yeah, because I just don't know if memes really resonate and fit as well into Bitcoin as, like inscribing art does. Whereas, and I'm not belittling me, I understand the value, but like maybe there's other places where that's going to prosper better. And maybe people that are interested and focused on that stay in those areas. And maybe it was a bit of a miscalculation to think that everybody's going to run over to Bitcoin and start getting involved because they want to be involved with memes. And when we talk about, all these different, like, again, I go back to the epic stat, like that's what really gets me excited about, what can be built and what we're doing, what we're looking at, and gets me wanting to, develop things that are going to be, permanently stored and saved and viewed and cherished, hopefully for generations to come. And I don't know if bonks of the world are necessarily going to have that sort of validation. So that's just something that I'm trying to think through.
Right. I would think at some point they'd have to have utility. Like, as cool as I think the etching of the epic sat was, and the blob and neuro art, like, am I 100% behind the epic? It's interesting. And I assume with my blob, I'll get airdropped it. I think you actually could mint some of that sat, but I think I was gone until that night, so it was long gone by then. But I assume we'll get airdropped a lot. But for me, at some point, you'd think it would need utility, but then again, Doge and Shiba Inu are 20 billion plus or minus whatever they are, 10 billion, whatever they're worth now, are pure meme coin. But but remember, Doge is actually more than a meme coin because there's the speculation that Elon might use it as a base currency and the Everything X app, which we are streaming live now on. So I would even break up the Epic Sat and the art with the Rune side.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I don't know, like I don't know if I fully agree that Bitcoin has certainly always been like, the narrative has always been Bitcoin is digital gold. It's a store of value. It's immutable money. It's the most secure, blah, 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 blah. That's always been the narrative. So to have Runes on top of that, I feel like a bigger part of it isn't necessarily that Bitcoin meme coins don't belong on Bitcoin, is that a lot of people haven't even come over. They've dabbled with ordinals, obviously with Node Monks, especially in that kind of second big push earlier this year. A huge swath of crypto punks and Bored Ape and Mutant Ape influencers, like clearly, and there was probably some coordination there, right? But clearly a huge wall of people moved over. Now, have a lot of them stayed? I think some, but I think some of the heavy ETH people might still be ETH, or maybe because we're crabbing everywhere right now and there's so much uncertainty that maybe everyone's just like, more people are quiet. It's certainly more quiet on the Bitcoin front now because Runes didn't take off. But I think it's more, because I know people were making fun of, like, everyone says X timeline spaces morning is always like, there's more and more ordinal show popping up every day, but it's still dominated by a couple of the big East Coast New York based ETH shows, and they're still deriding. I don't listen to them because those shows are it's like zoo radio. They're so cringe. But that'd be even worse. But I think their argument is like, the infrastructure's not there and all that. It's like, yeah, dude, when the infrastructure's there, that's when the market's more mature anyway. Like, do you want to be early or not? So I definitely agree with that thesis, but I just think a lot of them haven't come over, and what we saw is inevitable, that Bitcoin is going to suck all the narrative up, even though Solana still goes down and ETH, let's be honest, like Bankless was a cornerstone of ETH, and they're like, the fact that they're kind of angel VCs and delivering the news, like it's not working there. So there's kind of a vacuum to be filled there. But the reality is, our attention is way more on Bitcoin. And I think a lot people are there with us more so than ever, but a lot aren't, and that's a realization we have to come to. We can't be everywhere. I don't see myself going to Solana anytime soon, even though I'm sure I missed out on generational wealth on some of those tokens. But ETH, like, I still have my validators, but I'm not spending a lot of time thinking about it, which is kind of the coolest thing if you think about it. Like, even though I'm not heavy in ETH, still got my CryptoPunks, still have my validators, and every 8 days or 7 days, I get like, per validator, I get like 0.018 ETH. So, with 3 of them or 4 of them, whatever, it slowly adds up. And then I look at the little wallet and it's pleasantly surprising. And then ETH may have its day in the sun too. So, heavy Bitcoin, but I don't know if it's just that Runes and memes don't belong here. I think less people came over than we think. And I know, like, Shin, the Shroom guy, super smart guy, but I don't know if he's in China, but he's saying a lot of the Chinese and Asian market are way more BRC20, and they've got such heavy bags there. They don't want to come over. But then I heard other people like, that's one person's opinion, and that's not really true. So but I think we can all agree, everybody for the debut, the inauguration of our meme coin season, the amount of people from other chains the gravity of Bitcoin did not drive them to show up. And I think that's at least a fair and accurate statement. And I think they will come, but it didn't happen at the beginning. And now I think that's why we're in this kind of sideways crab. Like, it almost feels like we're in a mini bear where I'm like, it's getting nicer outside. Like, let's go touch grass, let's go garden.
Yeah, no. And it felt manic almost, a month ago. So, that's kind of the universe kind of equaling out a little bit. And that there's nothing negative about that if you really stick to your thesis and look at things from the long lens, which we always want to do. So, I don't know. What else do we want to hit on today?
Is there any other big topics to cover? I think we've, I gotta say, like, we always forget Disco, but like, if you like this show, definitely repost it, like it, follow it on Facebook. Facebook. We're not on Facebook. Jeez, Facebook blows, and we're not on Instagram either. And maybe one day, but no. No. But on YouTube, follow us Decentral, but it's also on Spotify. I'm a big podcast listener in the car, so I'm always either Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. So listen to us everywhere, but like it everywhere you can. Tell your friends. Obviously, it's a very long form show, but what I like, you hate to talk about yourself, but I think what we do that's interesting is we've got the news here. We use it as a template, macro, ordinals, runes, everything. But then we weave the tapestry based on kind of how we're feeling, kind of taking the temperature of the whole space. And it's funny, we generally always hit on everything we want to talk about, even if it's like just throwing the side dart to touch upon it as a supporter for this. But I think why we started this, 6 months ago now, it's crazy. It feels like forever ago and it feels like yesterday. But I think we started this because we were listening to things like Bankless and a lot of other shows, and they were just like, they were either rote and trying to get shorter and shorter because attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and they were just covering the news, or it was so biased that you're like, I don't even know what to trust or believe in you. Like I said, Peter McCormack, I still love his macro takes, and I think he's kept the advertisers for the most part separate from the show, and he's done a great job, and I learned a ton from the guests he has on the show. But I think we weave a story and a fabric, and I don't see that in many places. And to me, it's more fun when you kind of have your show order and then you completely blow it up and you just talk about everything, because not everything is an individual story. There's way bigger threads, like the Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. There's like 26 books, but it's just like this whole pattern that weaves much bigger as a story. And that's what we always try and bring in each week. So,
and the one other element that I'll say is there's a true sharing of, kind of the feelings and not afraid to kind of let emotion dictate where the ship's going. So it's, we may have themes that we want to get to, but most of them are based on, kind of how we're feeling at that point. And hopefully it resonates, because, we want to be as empathetic and representative as possible, and we'd love to foster conversation. So the other thing that we bring up and we'd like to see more engagement with is, give us ideas on things that you'd like to see us cover, and don't be afraid to join in on the conversation. I know it's a little bulky with X where you got to click into it to activate it to make comments and stuff, but we're always super excited when we see anybody jump in and anyone share anything. So I think that's kind of how we want to view this moving forward. And I appreciate everyone.
Before, I appreciate that, Disco. And before you do the disclaimer, I suspect, Elon's already announced like XTV, and I suspect we're just going to see this space flesh out more and more. Because I think the great thing about this is your video, we can share our screen. If you're on a desktop, you can actually see the screen, see the kind of data and stats that we're looking at. But the one thing, X is so real time that the half-life of these things is literally like 4 or 5 hours. And some of these videos, news, like if we get a show out, record it today and get it out tomorrow, it's almost obsolete. But at the same time, like I wish that it could be curated a little better, where it's very easy to find our backlogs of our shows and stuff like that. So, but I think that's happening, and we're trying to stay, instead of doing what everyone else does, we're trying to stay ahead of the curve and do where we think, the skate, not to use a terrible old hockey cliche, but skate where the puck's going, because I think this industry is, we're early, but we are. And I think we're going to update the look of this show. We're going to bring more and more people on that have interesting takes, but also just kind of give you, like Disco said, kind of the social side of it too, the EQ side of it, and not just the IQ side of it, because at the end of the day, like, there's feelings behind it. There's people behind the computers, and it's so easy to snipe people online and have arguments with people you don't know. But when you meet them, it's a whole different story. And Spaces is bringing people together closer than ever. But, I think video can do that even more. So,
yeah. Well, we do this show for entertainment purposes only. And while we do talk about financial opportunities, don't consider anything financial advice. Always do your own research and make sure that you don't put yourself in a position where you're leaning too far forward on your skis and can get into trouble. So, enjoy kind of the ride of what we're doing, and please feel free to be involved. And we value your time and your input.
Yeah. And Alpha, I appreciate you. And it's a good question, actually. So, I set up a Telegram group for Satoshi Nakamoto. I've been on Telegram for all of 2 weeks, and it got hacked because I didn't have the right controls. It got hacked for the Satoshi Nakamoto group literally within 3 minutes, and then Lane set it up and did it right. But we will eventually, Disco and I've talked about Discord, or probably not Telegram. It'd probably be Discord, but we're working on some cool art stuff. Eventually we'll probably go there, but it's my thing is Discord, there's you want 2 or 3 that you visit a lot. I hate it when I have 10 open and you go to those places. So until I think we can get enough like-minded folks, and maybe that is around a very free or cheap but high quality art drop of some sort, or something that kind of carries meaning for us. And we're in Discord and are just in the beginning stages of talking about it. Then I think we would go there. We do, it's more me with Scribe and Damon and I'm Pepe. There is the Runes Collective, which we did for the whole pooling thing. And that's a good place. And they're opening more channels, but at some point we will. But I think for now, until, because we anything we do, we'd want to be in there a lot and have like-minded folks. So if you have ideas, we're totally game. But for now, it's basically the Twitter timeline, and we do Twitter DMs. Maybe Twitter DMs is the first place you start, because that one's kind of easy. You start with a smaller group with like-minded folks, and you curate it that way. Because at least, let's be honest, if you're a full-time Web3 person or a heavy part-time, like we are, I still got a company I got to run and stuff like that. And Disco's got all sorts of projects that he's working on too, which to me makes this more fun. Because if you're all in, you're also all in. Whereas we have more balance. We've got the families, we're all in, but we know when to kind of step away or walk away and when to get busy. So the very long-winded answer is, it's coming, but there's no time frame on it yet. So did you finish the disclaimer, Disco, or is there the other half to it or something?
No, I closed it out. I think we did an honest disclaimer.
Okay, cool. Well, appreciate all of you out there. Again, tell your friends. And I'm Blue Toshi. This is, there we go. I have to point the opposite way that the camera's telling me, but this is Disco. And I don't know, any final thoughts, Disco, before we say goodbye for another week?
I just think that, I didn't think I'd start the show off ending with gratitude, but I'll go back to gratitude, because now, when we hang up, I'm going to start, kind of looking at my little to-do list and focusing priorities on some of the things that came up, and continue that kind of beginner's mind, just in terms of what we can develop and what can come to life. So I went back to being extremely excited and bullish. So I thank the show for that, at least.
Yeah, for sure. Because sometimes you like everything in life, you dread doing the show. You're like, it's crabby, and it's like, and Disco's like, well, we'll just talk about our feelings and talk about that. Like every morning, I make a neighbor taught me this. Every morning, we've got a couple new garden beds that we had done, and they did a beautiful job. And I go out with my dog, throw the ball, and I garden and just weed for like 15, 20 minutes a day. And at first it became like, I got to keep the beds clean, or these thistle are going to come up. But now it's like, it's one of the highlights of my day. Like just, and that's kind of life. Like, just like you got, sometimes you got to take care of the stuff you don't want to. And then sometimes the things you don't think you want to do turn into like this beautiful thing where you hear the birds, and, your dog's fetching all over, and you got a beautiful garden, and you're kind of in the moment outside. So when you come back inside to bang on the keys and to talk into the microphone out there, like it gives you a whole new appreciation. So Disco, I agree. The gratitude is and the feeling is definitely mutual. Like it's a fun show. I look forward to it. It's right in the middle of the week, and it's just a pleasure to do, and just kind of resonate and talk about where things are, because this space is important. What's happening on the macro and the micro is important, and we're here for it.
Yeah. All right. Until next time.
Ciao, everybody.
Take care.